think, yes. This Finance Committee meeting for October 24th. Julia Olafson, if we could go around the room, see who's here.
Russ Jarek.
Ms. Val.
Tanya Bell.
Brett Cooper.
And,
Kathy Hayes.
okay, we got other folks here too, but those are the the committee members that are here. When we last left our heroes, we had almost nothing to talk about because the Act 1 information had not been released yet. We had not been able to review that, but we have things to talk about today. So let's start with Act 57.
Okay, I was just going to give everybody just a brief understanding if they don't know what Act 57 is. That's the new legislation they passed to make sure taxpayers that have just bought, apparently they had a lot of problems with the people that have bought houses in their first year. They don't receive their tax bill, or there's been a lot of complaints that they have not received the tax bill. So this gives the homeowner, and I gave you an example of the request for the waiver, in case they miss that tax bill and they don't realize that they have to pay taxes. They have,
I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing at you.
Okay.
I was laughing at people who don't know they have to pay taxes.
they didn't realize that they had to pay taxes, but maybe they're a new homeowner, let's put it that. They can waive the property tax penalties charges if they just fill out the form and go through that, and that leaves, as long as it's like, it doesn't leave the tax collectors personally liable, as long as they're acting in good faith. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So if someone was to present this, it says it has to be presented to the tax collector. Do they have to send it to us or to our tax collection company?
I would prefer that they actually send it to Keystone.
Yeah.
However, if they send it to us, we would just...
You would forward it along. Okay. Okay.
There is a resolution on the voting being under programs added consent that was drafted by our solicitor
Okay.
for the board action.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, we'll be voting on it.
Okay. Any questions on that? Moving on to the Act 1 calendar.
Okay, now I can bring it up on the screen, or you can just flip through the slide thing that I do.
Do you want to follow along? Or are you good? Okay, so we just got our paperwork. That's fine.
I have an extra copy if you want. Entertain. Okay, so I gave you the same calendar view. We have the way that you go. The accelerated route is on, when you're looking at the paper, on the right side of the paper, and the full-blown, the non-accelerated route is on the left side of the paper. So I'm going for the accelerated amount.
And last year we did the accelerated, and it was the first time in a long time that we had done that. That's correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and it's because we have the indexes, the allowable is so high.
Oh, is that 5.3 is our adjusted Act 1?
Yeah, that's all the way at the end.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I'm reading ahead.
It's also right in there on page 2. So
All right.
when you look through, you're going to see the accelerated budget, then Blue intends to stay within the index for the adjusted Act 1 index, which is 5.3% for 23-24. So if the board votes that for people that may be new to the process, I want to make sure I explain it clearly. So the index, our adjusted index for Daniel Boone Area School Districts is 5.3. Now, on the very last page, I explained to you what that means. That means that that equates to a 1.72949 mil increase, or 1.9 or $2 million, okay, in additional revenue if we actually went right to the allowable. So you can see that now, Daniel Boone's history, we've never gone to the allowable, but again, that's a decision you all make. The chances of us going outside of that and needing more than that $2 million is very unlikely. So there's an accelerated route and there's a non-accelerated route. The non-accelerated route that you would take would mean that you'd want to go for the exceptions. We didn't qualify for PSERS last year. My assumption is that we're not going to, but I'd have to wait till the numbers come out, that we're not going to qualify for PSERS exceptions. We have 3 exceptions. It was the debt, it was PACERS, and it was special education. We may qualify special education, which will be probably between $200,000 and $300,000, which allows us to take the 5.3% and then an additional $200,000 on top of that. If you guys are so choosing that 5.3% is not enough, that you need to raise the taxes and you feel it needs to go above that and get to 200,000, then we need to go the non-accelerated now to keep all of our options open. However, with a 5.3%, there's $1.9 million, $2 million that you can raise the tax, staying within that Act 1 index. It brings us to a simpler method where you kind of alleviate the long process of going through and having many meetings, publishing, putting it out for public inspection and all that stuff. We go, basically, we say, okay, we're going to opt to stay in within the Act 1 index in January. We put it out 5 days, and then we submit the resolution to PBE, and then we come back in May to adopt and propose. However, within that, we're going to have a couple meetings, budget committees, so you can understand the numbers within our budget and get a good understanding and be able to have the administrators here as well that can answer questions for their individual budgets. So that's the calendar. It's going to bring us to the May 22nd, where I'll put it on public display. Usually our budget meeting is June 12th, but everyone knows we have till June 30th. If you guys decide that you can't vote or there's too much up in the air on June 12th, that final voting meeting, you have till June 30th that you can have another meeting again if you need to revisit the topic.
Okay. Can I ask you just a question? Next thing on the agenda is adjusted index. Is that where we're going to discuss the changes in the Act 1 over the last couple of years, or like where the Act 1 number comes from and stuff like that?
Well, and I have on the last page,
And I'm looking at that. That's why I brought it up. And
yes, I did give history on the very back page. We
Um,
have the Act 1 base index for this, I guess for the state is 4.1%. But then they give us our adjusted one based on the economy of the area.
Right.
The economy of the area gave us a 5.3%. So we can take where we are and then 5.3% times our millage now, we get to increase it that much, which equals that 1.7249 mil.
Yeah, and what I wanted to ask was, you can see that that over the course of the last 10 years or so, our Act 1, and by extension, the adjusted Act 1, has been creeping up and up and up for our district. I just wanted to, if we could, for the newer members of the board, the Act 1, what goes into deciding what that number is going to be into the magic formula.
That's a magic formula, it's a state formula driven. I mean, you've got all the economics of the area determining whether it's inflation, it's what our people, the average income for the area.
Right.
But I guess what I'm wondering is that when you get down to it, if the Act 1 number is low, is that the formula saying that we are economically disadvantaged, or is it is the formula saying we are economically disadvantaged when it's a higher number? That's what I'm asking.
Well, and I look at the adjusted and the percentage that they're giving us, they're trying to rely on us more on our taxpayers. They did give us extra money this year for special education. When I look at the base going up is that there was a prior discussion that our economy in our area is more rich than other communities, and that's based on that survey that goes out.
Yeah.
Some people answer, some people don't. The higher this base index is where they're trying to get us, like the 4.1 is the median for the whole state. We get a 5.3 because they feel our district has more money to
So,
put in there.
so kind of what it means to me, and you can correct me if this is wrong,
No.
is that when that percentage each year is going up, what the state is saying that this is the number that you could raise your taxes without us intervening and saying no, or without the extra scrutiny of doing the
Yes.
non-fast track, because we think the people in your community can withstand that kind of increase
Yes.
because of these determinations we made. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm just saying that's what the tax,
Right.
that's what the state is saying.
And when's that
definitely don't
survey
agree
going
with that. That survey is that, you know that survey that they send out, almost a lot of people think it's junk mail. And they say they want to know what your income level is for and where you work and all this. A lot of people, it depends. They say they send a survey out all over, but if you've got the lower economic areas of our community that are not filling it out, but the higher
Right.
level are
You
filling
know,
it out,
did we figure
it's
out that
very
they
unfair.
send that out in the early summer? Is
In
that,
the early summer? I think
Right.
it started in March or
Like I
whatever.
remember-
I've never
I must have
gotten
thought
it.
it was junk mail too, because I just don't recall seeing it.
different?
Yeah, but the thing is that, and you're correct, but the
Ours
consumer,
is 90.
the consumer products
Yeah.
survey company
Yeah.
does not care. They don't care. You know, if we think it's wrong, they don't
They
want to
don't
make,
care.
they are not interested in that
And
information.
here's the other part.
You know?
Part of that is that the people that are filling out, let's say we get the whole community to understand that the survey is they need to fill it out, okay, to make sure that it's an accurate reading for our school district. If they fill it out right now, you're not gonna see the effects of that for 2 years.
Right,
Because we're using 2-year-old data
Right.
in order to get the formula.
So this current is based on a survey from 2 years ago?
Yes.
and that I didn't realize
I
until
didn't
very
know that
recently.
either.
And
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it
we're
was like
2
the
years
summer
behind.
before.
Yeah, me
Now-
too.
Now, it
always
takes a
the way.
while to get all that counted and all that accurate, so it takes about 2 years for them to use that for the formula.
But the other,
That's us, usually.
so the other point that, yeah, right. But the other point that I wanted to make is that, you know, we were saying at the beginning of this discussion that it had been a very long time before this past year since we had done the fast tracking of the budget finalization. And if you look at these numbers and the margins that the old Act One index would have allowed us to make increases at, you know, the numbers that are, like, if you look at 2015, it's like less than half of what is allowed right now. So I think it makes sense that in the past, we were like, no, let's do it the slower way that allows us to make if we needed to make an increase past the index here, because the index was a lot smaller, you know.
Right.
Now,
Yeah,
we never went up above that. We never went up above
Right.
it. But to leave the option open, I think back 5-10 years ago might have made more sense. I think with that Act
number
One
being
number
higher
being
now,
so high,
That we're not gonna.
that we're not gonna increase like up past 2.8 mil, you know, in a year.
So we're not gonna go the
So I think that I would like to, I mean, we can have further discussions. We do not have to make the decision today because it's not going to be on the agenda tonight. But I think I would like it if this committee would recommend to do the fast tracking.
Okay.
You know,
Yep.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think in like last year, I sat on that for a while because I felt uncomfortable making a change from something that worked in the past. But I understand that right now the Act One allowance is just so large. There's just no way.
Well, I agree with you. I think in previous years when it was a smaller number, it made more sense. But
Right.
now, yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mr. Rittenhouse? Mr. Rittenhouse? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. The numbers you have here, are these the indexes that were allowed to us, or is this what we went with?
The ones that are here on this last page are the actual official.
That's our.
That's what we were allowed.
Yeah,
to do.
and
It's not
and
what
they
we-
all had an
This
adjusted.
is what you were allowed to do.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, and there was an adjustment always based on Act One that bumped it up a little higher. But these were what the.
No, these are the adjusted ones. for our
Oh, these are the
school
adjusted
Yes.
ones that
These
you
were
put in
our
there.
adjusted ones.
Good.
They were not what we actually did.
So it's
For the whole
already.
period of 5 years, we did 0.
Right.
And you know, to just for some comparison, I don't remember an increase higher than 1.0 mil in the last 4 years, 5 years.
Not since I've been here.
And
I've been here since 16.
I'm not saying I'm recommending that. I'm just saying, just for comparison's sake.
Of course.
Because I haven't even seen what the budget's going to look
Right.
like. But this is just, I feel that when the time comes, I would like the committee to recommend to go the fast track route. It's a little bit less, work for Ms. Haynes.
There's
But-
a lot less pressure.
Yeah,
You don't
on
have
all of
everything,
us.
And there's tedious things you have to do. We can focus more on the numbers and what we're dividing the budget.
And we can see, and then, to be honest, when we had a much smaller margin of error, when the the Act 1 index, base index was smaller, we had to leave that option open, which left us open to lots of, we are going to tax to the max, from our community. And we would have to explain, we're just leaving our options open, and then we get to the end, and we wouldn't raise it that high, and everybody got like the slings and arrows for no reason, and but I think we might be able to avoid at least some of that if we do that, because I don't think there's any reason that we can keep any increase below that Act 1. What that Act 1 of 5.3% would equate to in our budget. So we don't have to make that decision today, right? Yeah. So
It's just informational
yeah,
we do this in January. We'll make a decision.
I've been very surprised at that movement in that Act 1 index at the last couple of years. I kept thinking that it was going to pop up and then it was going to sink back down. But yeah, okay. All right, any questions about that process for Ms. Haynes? Adjusted index, that's part of that discussion already?
That's what we've always done.
All right, the next thing is something that I asked Ms. Haynes to add to the agenda. There's been some discussion on the board, and, that we've had, we had set our budget based on our expectation of what we were going to get from the state government, and we had a modest tax increase, and then as always, July 1 rolled around, and I don't think we still had a state budget, and then whenever they finished it, July 3rd or July 5th or whatever, there was a significant increase in money that was coming to the school district. So it has been asked if we could talk about doing some sort of refund or tax credit for the following year to shave some millage points off of our tax millage for real estate, based on the fact that we got significantly more money than we expected based on our budget. Because as always, we created our budget before the state had to create their budget, because they don't have to follow rules. But so I'm hoping Ms. Haynes could let us know like how much more money we received this year than what we had budgeted and expected per the proposed and finalized budget that we submitted.
We received extra money,
Mm-hmm.
but we also spent extra money on the tuition.
Tuition.
The tuition's always our moving target.
Oh, that's correct.
So
So you mean assistance to students who can't afford tuition?
No, teachers, because we've had so many new teachers that, oh, I'm wrong?
These would,
it's tuition to do with cyber charter, all those.
Oh, never mind.
So when we have more placements, it's nice when we receive the extra money, but understand, and I just caution everybody down this path, because when we will have one special ed kid move into the district, that can destroy the budget. You can go up where it's in the 200,000 to 300,000. y'all just signed some stuff that we just had, what's the attorney's name? Our special ed attorney, I just escaped me.
No,
Tom Warner,
Tom Warner.
Mr. Warner.
and that was $200,000. So even though we did receive extra money, it wasn't $1 million, it was just, you know, I think it was $500,000-$600,000, whatever it was. We did sign some of those things that now I have $200,000 more in center.
So the additional money that we received for regular education and special ed totaled less than $1 million. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
And the additional money that we've put out beyond what we.
I can give you exact figures at a later time. We can do
Okay.
this next month, but I can show you exactly where the extra money was spent in terms of the special ed, whatever the placements. and
Okay.
stuff.
So the expenditures didn't match the money we received from the state, is what you're saying?
On something that, we don't get a choice whether we spend that money on tuition for students that leave the school district.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
that's
an
not something,
obligation.
and,
Right.
and that is always problematic for us. And sometimes it works in our favor because somebody ages out or comes back to the school
2
district.
years ago, it worked in our favor. I think we had quite a significant savings in that 500 category.
I don't think
So
I
you had
understood.
more placements into charter or cyber
Yes, and we
schools
had
or
more
whatever.
settlements. We had
And
settlements
that
as well.
outweighed the extra money that we got from the state.
No, but it didn't outweigh it, it just took away from it.
It just took
It
it.
just minimized it.
Yeah, so I can give you the exact figures
Well,
at
right.
a later time. I'm
It-
still closing the books. I'm still trying to get.
I understand. I thought that, my understanding from what I did not realize that it was less than $1 million. I thought it was a lot more than that from those scuttlebutt on the street.
Okay.
Yeah. So which is fine.
No, and I
It's
can give you exact figures, but no,
Yeah.
it wasn't any more. It wasn't over $1 million.
okay. Do you want to revisit this conversation with some numbers, like how much more beyond our budgeted amount
Oh, yeah, I'd like
went
to do
toward that? Yeah,
absolutely.
and yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
I think
Was
we
there
got
any
together
fluff
for
in the
next 5 years
proposed
and-
budget, Kathleen?
Huh?
Was there any fluff in the proposed budget?
What?
Yeah.
In our budget?
Little padding? Anything like that?
In our budget?
Yeah.
I believe, we.
Yeah, contingency.
Per se, I think there was areas that we have to budget higher, like in my 500 and my 300 category. I have to budget.
500, 300 is 500.
Oh, 500 is your tuition, where you have your cybers and you have your charters, and you have your outsourcing.
And 300 is
And 300 is professional services.
okay.
So if I have a special ed that comes in that needs 3 professional services and then needs to go to a special school, I'm hitting both categories, or I'm hitting one or I'm hitting the other.
And those are the things that if it costs what it costs, because if we don't pay it, it's a violation of the law. So yeah, and it is hard. I understand that it is hard.
Those are my 2 moving targets when I have it. So if you were to see more money, it's probably in that 500, and that's where I've seen savings. Like 2 years ago, we had some significant savings in the 500.
So maybe if we could see, like, I think maybe if we look at like, a full, an exact as you can get it amount more that we received from the state, and then look at maybe we do look at the 300 and the 500, what we expected to spend during this calendar year, and what the current projection is based on our students' needs. I think that if we look at those 2 things, I think that should tell us if maybe there isn't as much new free money floating around the system.
Right, exactly. See, when I'm budgeting, I like to say that my expenditures are going to equal my revenue at the end of the year. I don't like to go into fund balance.
Yeah.
When we do a budget every single year, we do that we're going to eat up $3 million, $2 million worth of fund balance. My goal is to beat those expenses down as much as we can during the year and try to get to the break-even point. It's very, very important to get to that break-even point. but I have the budget that we're gonna go into because I don't know if a special ed student is gonna come in. It's very important to look at it from that perspective because no one here knows if somebody's gonna come in and destroy the budget. I feel like I've done some amazing work when I can say at the end of the year, we broke even. We didn't touch our fund balance. It's very important not to dwindle that fund balance down because we've worked so hard to get where we are now. We have a good capital budget to get these buildings where they need to be. We have a good fund balance because we have about 3 months worth of operating money in our fund balance right now, the general fund, which is called unassigned. We have a small amount of money sitting for PSERS because we're not sure, like the market, I'm still not sure that they're not gonna jack that rate up. But it's nice to have that $700 or $1 million we have sitting there. We don't have tons of money sitting around at all. And to just come in and sit here and say, okay, we've got a budget, it's $2 million over, and I'm gonna take all that fund balance away. That would sit us at zero. That'd be like you going home and not having a savings account for an emergency heater that just broke in your home. It would be irresponsible from a fiduciary, but that's how I look at it. So it's very important to me to break even on that budget, beat those expenses down. Yeah, we budgeted for all of this, because just in case, I don't know if the special ed's gonna come in. I don't know if a major roofing thing's gonna happen, or a major something is gonna happen that I'm gonna need the money. So we budget accordingly with the plan that we're gonna do certain things, but also in case that special ed student moves in. So that's why that money is there.
Yeah, so if we could just look at what was in the budget that we approved last June for state disbursements,
Yeah, we're wrapping all of that
and what the actual one is,
Absolutely.
and then two, like we said, 300 and 500 expenses, what was in the budget from June, and what the projected is now based on changes in student need. And I think if we could start at least looking at that next budget meeting, next meeting.
Next finance committee, because we'll have.
Does that make sense, guys?
The audit will be all done by that point, because the audit, we're holding the audit right now because the inventory is due by November 4th.
Oh, perfect.
And we're gonna use that fixed asset number as a beginning point for our new financials, so whatever write-off we need to do to make it correct, that's what we're gonna use. So I held them off to present the audit to you all in December. But I will definitely have the numbers because I'm gonna file the AFR, the annual financial report, by November. You'll have those good numbers, because they will be solid by then. I have an idea where we are, but I mean, I wanna be precise when we come in and talk about it.
If you had to make an educated guess,
But
if you had to make an educated guess,
I broke even last year. I came in within $200,000. And that was because I lost the 266 in access money, because we didn't have a doctor on staff.
Right.
Right.
I had $266,000.
Is that on the agenda tonight?
Huh?
Is that on the agenda tonight for doctor services?
I think there's a doctor services,
No.
but they can only go back
not
as
yet.
far
No.
as the IEPs that are still open.
Got it.
I don't know that I'm gonna make up all that ground and get that 266 plus additional money next year, but we'll see how that all turns out.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, last time I ran it, I'm
Okay.
sitting very pretty.
All right. So yeah, and I think that this might be a little bit more of an attempt for us to, there's part of it I feel more comfortable with just knowing that it's a moving target, but like I understand like the general vicinity of where the targets are instead of it looking like a black box to me. So I think that'll be good. Okay. So to be continued on that, I guess.
Absolutely.
And any committee members have anything they want to add or refine in that request so that Kathleen can be ready for our next meeting, just go ahead and let her know in an email. Is that it? Anybody else have any questions for the good of the cause? Go ahead.
I'm not on the committee, but
That's okay.
the amount of kids leaving for charter schools, do you see like a trend there? Like are they going up or?
No, I think when we take a look at our kids who were placed there leaving for cyber schools, our numbers are back where they were prior to COVID. So we're back down there. But the target that Kathleen's mentioning has more to do with our special education placements, because, one of those can be an upwards cost of, in just 1 year's time, $80,000, $90,000, upwards of that. It may not be all of our kids, some are 40 or 50 a year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything about that, but
Right.
the kids leaving for charter schools, is charter schools like a significant increase?
It's come back down. This year, it's come back down to closer to where it was before COVID.
How much is the tuition spent on kids?
I was going to ask is,
Well-
have the tuition numbers increased even if the number of students haven't increased?
Nah, you're paying more for your special ed students. Probably your average is around special ed 30,000 for a cyber charter school student.
Out on our website, we do have that. We have
Specific
that form
numbers.
out there in the finance. And what had happened was the year prior, because of COVID, our daily average rate
Was down.
went down significantly.
ADMs, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
of COVID ins and outs.
Yeah.
So our rates skyrocketed. And this year, like, I'm sitting there going crazy because I'm thinking I did all the numbers wrong. But when you go back over it, it totally makes sense because of the fact that our rates went up and down. Out on our website, under the business and finance, there's charter school funding. It's called the PDE 363. It's a report I have to have done by July or August. I'm already both. July or August. And this year's rates are out there right now, and they are for a regular ed, 13,
Some change.
non-special ed is 13,055.92, and then your special ed is 2720. But when you looked at last year's, it was for non-special ed 14,000, and for a special ed student it was 30,500.
Right.
So that it was significant because our daily average membership was 3,100. That's what they were basing it on, and this year is 34. Oh, that's always last year. I'm doing it for this year.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
And that's always out there by August. You can see it right on the website, what we're paying for a special ed versus non-special ed. It's the PDE 363 under charter schools, right on that business and finance.
Okay, anybody else have any comments on finance before we adjourn? Okay. All right, see you guys in 7 minutes.